Welcome back to Coffee with Yvonne, a show for creatives and entrepreneurs. I'm Yvonne Pearson, your host, and Darling, the founder. Again, it sounds so good with nails. The founder of Pink Doll House Marketing. And you know what? Spring is finally springing. Spring is finally springing because the way when I walked outside, I said, warm weather, is that you? I have missed you so much. But this week on Coffee with Yvonne, we're going to do a little something different. Remember when I did that one episode about podcasting tips? We gonna switch it up again. And this time I'm gonna give you 5 things I wish I knew as a content creator before I started my journey, and sharing insights with you about things that I've learned over my Lord, how long has it been? 10 plus years in the content game, as well as a little bit of my story about how I ended up at the Paradise Season 2 premiere. Clock it, because I was invited. So grab your coffee and let's chat. And to be totally honest with you guys, there's no coffee in this cup. This is actually green juice, because green juice also is how I keep my skin besides genetics. Praise the Lord. Keep my skin, look how dewy fresh I am with no makeup. Just a little bit of eyebrow filling in, but no makeup at all. That's just me. But anyway, there's no coffee in this cup, but you're going to get all the energy like I had 2 cups today. Yes, you are. Okay, so first, let's start about my background journey as a content creator. So the year was, Yvonne, be serious. The year was 2011, and if you see me looking down at my screen, it's because I bring notes to the conversation. But the year was 2011. I was fresh out of college because I graduated in 2009. Yes, I am an OG social media content girly. But I graduated in 2009 from college and had a really hard time finding a job. Let me tell you what was happening in these streets in the job market. Nothing was happening if you graduated from college at that time, depending on your degree. But for a lot of us, there was no real opportunities, right? And so I have my degree in art and art history with a concentration in marketing. I kind of created my own major because I saw like the shift that was happening in the industry spaces. Even though I started out as pre-med, we ain't going to talk about that. But eventually found my footing and did art and art history with a concentration in marketing. So graduated from college, had, good internship underneath my belt. And the track was from my plan, graduate, move from intern to manager and training program, because I was an intern in the federal government at the time. And at my mom's agency, actually, EPA, she actually got me that job when she was washing her hands. True story. And when the ELTs asked, what is Vonnie doing for the summer? She said she's looking for an internship specifically in marketing. And they were like, she started on Monday. So that's how I got my internship. She got me the internship, but it was my job to keep it, which was very clear in our discussions. And the plan was for me to stay at EPA to then transfer over to the Smithsonian, because I really wanted to work in the Smithsonian on like the side of curation, programming, that side of like the marketing kind of space, more like the visual aspect. You are the visuals when it came to that side of the work that they do at the Smithsonian. And, also the plan was for me to go to grad school. I was accepted into Howard University to get my master's degree, and everything was on track till it wasn't. And I found myself without a job because they cut the program. I found myself in grad school and hating it, because I went to grad school out of the obligation of thinking I had to go immediately after college to get my secondary degree. And I went into a space where all the things I thought that gave me security, like having this, degree showing I have an education, having all these things that I thought I was ready to offer the world and into the workforce and being successful, was wiped away. And I found myself at a crossroad of either make excuses as to why you can't do something or you weren't able to do something, or make your own path. And it may take you a little longer to get there, but you're going to get there. So I started to blog. And this is after multiple rejections from places when I was applying for jobs, things that I don't want to repeat in full verbatim, but basically they didn't want me there because I was too Black. I wasn't the right fit. I wasn't what they were looking for, because marketing is still a very white-centered space. And during the time period where I came out of college, it still was something that was unspoken, but it was there, if you hear what I'm saying. So after receiving rejection after rejection after rejection, and only finding the only job opportunities was like selling door-to-door Verizon Fios, which was a thing then, or working in high-end retail, I chose to go high-end retail, because I was like, you know what? The plan is not, clear right now, but I'm going to trust God. I'm going to trust the gift that he has given me, and I'm going to trust where he's going to take me. I'm just going to move on faith. And everyone knows who has a belief in their faith and things like that. Faith without work is dead. So I knew I could have the faith, but God still wanted to see me put in the work. So while I was working retail, I networked. I, made sure to listen, and I started my blog. And this was very early in blogging, where it was still very new and people were trying to figure out what this thing was. This was still around the time that Facebook was new. Instagram had just, was founded and was still finding its footing in the market. And I was essentially in a space that was still being created, no pun intended, created while I was in it, right? So during that time period of me being a blogger, I was working full time at Bloomingdale's, and I was looking into other career pathways that were centered around marketing. I applied for like the buyer program for Bloomingdale's. I did not get in, but for TJ Maxx, I did get in. I ended up not going because financially it was just hard for me to have to move to another state and not get paid for I think it was like a 3 to 6 month program for that time period to be part of this program that required you to be fully invested in it. So I turned that down. But while I was working, putting my blog together, I was receiving opportunities to work behind the scenes of like New York Fashion Week. And I talked about this previously on a prior episode with my good sis Bianca. Hey B. And it was just something that I knew there was going to be an end game to it. And I knew if I was smart and built my own portfolio, which blogging showed that I could write, that I knew how to edit. I knew how to use back end of programs like WordPress and, Blogger, Tumblr, things like that. I knew how to take photos. That was something that I don't think people realized early in the blogger, now content creation influencer game, was a skill set that a lot of companies needed, but didn't see the value in, having the ability to take photos and being an editor of your own work. And over time, it shifted from me working in retail full time to I really was splitting my time between here in the DMV and New York. I found myself in New York darn near every other week at sometimes, and I was working shows. I was a assistant to a couple of people. I worked as a PR assistant for the Greater Washington Fashion Chamber of Commerce here in DC, where I learned how to do things like put together press releases. I work behind the scenes at shows. I interview people who were on Top Model, including Miss J and Jocelyn. Jocelyn, you remember Jocelyn, the Cha-Cha Diva? People like that. I did things like work as a fashion assistant, in which I helped pull looks for fashion and runway shows. I worked for shows that were for Macy's, for things with Essence magazine. I was doing all kind of things in the fashion space. And I also worked as a social media assistant. My first real job really in the industry for Leanne Farbs, who was at the time and still is, give her credit, one of the biggest beauty influencers in the space. She even had a collaboration with MAC to create her own eyeshadow line, and hers sold out darn near instantly. I was her social media person, and I helped her build her social media platforms for her channels. So I was often with her in New York, creating the content behind the scenes to document her journey during New York Fashion Week, including covering key events for New York Fashion Week, interviewing people like the people at Butter London when they first launched X, Y, and Z, going to Project Runway yes, I did Project Runway wrap parties and things like that, covering those events. So my journey as a content creator was never linear, but there was always a path forward, right? And that turned into me, because work with me here, there's a through line. That turned into me going from being the person who was working these runway shows in the fashion marketing and PR space, to now me being asked to consult more. And in doing that consultation, I found myself more behind the scenes being a strategist, which is what I wanted to do anyway in the marketing space. But I still was doing content creation because I wanted to stay sharp. And over time, when I shifted my blog, it first started out being called Step Into My Stilettos. Girl, what were you thinking? But it's fine. To Pink Doll House. And Pink Doll House, the inspiration behind that was a Barbie dream house I got when I was 8 years old, and I credit as the spark of my creativity. So I took the name Pink Doll House and turned it into Pink Doll House Marketing, which is my business. I started in 2017 with $1,300 from a bonus I received as a coordinator, and I still own today. And in that through line, Pink Dollhouse served as a framework for not just my business and consultation and marketing, but also the framework or for the house, essentially, for my content creator journey. Everything that is centered around my content lives underneath that Pink Dollhouse umbrella. The podcast that you're listening and are watching, Coffee with Yvonne, the content I create on my channels, I even went so far as to get it trademarked and registered with the Copyright Trademark Office to protect myself and my work. And while I was building all this over time, I started noticing I was getting recognized as a content creator when you started seeing that shift around in roughly 2020 when people were stuck at home. And when I started taking my content more seriously, I started noticing companies starting to take my content more seriously. I noticed that I was getting different kind of emails in my inbox, saying things like, "We love your content. We would love to collab X, Y, and Z." My biggest collab to date, which is where I'm getting to, is Hulu. Hulu saw a video I almost deleted last year reacting to Paradise season 1. And it was very early in the season episodes. I think it was like episode 1-ish I was reacting to on social. And mind you, I almost deleted this video because it wasn't considered perfect. But something told me, do not delete this content. And I'm glad I didn't. That video organically did about 5,000 views on its own, which was impressive at the time, considering I had less than 1,000 followers on, I think I had less than 1,000 followers on the platform, because I had another video that went viral before reacting to former VP Kamala Harris running for president that did so many numbers, my phone overheated and shut down. Clock it. And so when Hulu reached out and slid in my DMs, I was not only overwhelmed with joy, but also validated. Because I think a lot of times when people look at content creation, they focus solely on how many followers you have and not about the impact you have in what you're doing in the space. And when I saw them request to take my video and share it and turn it into an ad, I was like, sure, did all the little signing, blah, blah, blah. And that video changed everything for me as a content creator. Before, I was just someone, no, not just someone, because I am that girl. Before, I was someone who was working more strategically at the time, just behind the scenes, moving the needle forward for different creators or clients I work with outside of my day-to-day role as a senior marketing manager in science. But in this space, as a content creator, I stand on my own. It's not about anyone else. It's just me being myself. And so that video by itself went from 5,000 views organically with, pretty good engagement. Engagement, by the way, you guys, things like bookmarks, saves, shares, comments, etc. Because I make sure that I am engaging with my audience respectfully. If you respect me in my comments, I respect you as well. I don't do back and forth. I don't. But engagement in an authentic way is very important to me. So that video ended up being picked up, like I mentioned before, and it did 5.2 million on TikTok alone. It was also shared on Instagram, and Hulu included in a carousel for popular videos reacting to the show. So my video was included with people like Kevin on stage, and I was just like mind blown, because I never thought that my video, where I almost deleted, would turn into something like this. Fast forward. After working with Hulu on that, I was like, okay, that was cool. Then another video I almost deleted. I'm starting to see a trend here. Another video I almost deleted was a video of me reacting to Coleman Domingo's look on the Vogue cover for the Met Gala. That got picked up by Vogue as an ad. And then another video got picked up by the Today Show reacting to Sesame Street and what was happening with them potentially, getting canceled, X, Y, and Z, and then getting picked up by Netflix. And then I had another video get picked up on Instagram, though. When I went to Le Petit Chef in Brussels, they picked that video up as an ad, and that ended up doing 1.2, 1.3 million on Instagram. So I say all this to say, every single time I showed up as myself authentically, the videos do well. I'm not the type of person who follows trends. I'm not the type of person who will sit there and just look for things to react to on social media. I follow a formula for myself that works. The formula is lifestyle content. You're going to get a percentage of my life, not the full scope, because I like my privacy. It is marketing or creative center content in which I break down things that you may have seen on your social media timeline and may not be aware of, like the marketing tactics or the strategy behind it. For example, Cardi B's I Am Little Miss Drama tour, Kendrick Lamar, when he got the picked up by Chanel for being a beauty ambassador, I've reacted to that. I reacted to all different kind of things, breaking down marketing tactics behind them. And then, finally he might get it like a little behind the scenes or just my own like personal thoughts about stuff. A month ago, I was invited by Hulu to attend the season 2 premiere of Paradise. Before that, I was invited to join their content creator group specifically to get exclusive things related to Paradise before the general public. And I thought that was cool enough by itself. But getting the invite out to LA really did solidify for me that I am doing something right. And in this episode today, that's what we're going to talk about are the tips that I have for you about things that I have learned as a content creator that I hope can be helpful for you in your journey. So let's first, and that was a very long explanation that I took a lot of your time to talk about, but let's first talk about the first lesson or tip that I have for you guys. Content creation is a marketing tool. And again, as your favorite marketing girly, I'm going to keep saying this to y'all. These platforms are essentially a visual portfolio for your work to show the world who you are. And showing up authentically is just something that I recommend for people to do, but also showing up consistently is also important. Every piece of content shows who you are, what you stand for, and why people should trust you. Even small posts contribute. And when you think about things like, oh, I only got 200 views, to put it in context, and I know I've shared this before. To put it in context, 200 views, if you are in a room, say for example, you in a movie theater, right? Okay, let's do that one. You're in a movie theater, there are 200 seats. Girl, every single seat is filled and they looking at you. That's a lot of people, isn't it? That's a lot of people. When you have content that resonates, even with 200 people, you still have some kind of impact. Plus, you don't know who is in the room with those 200 people. It could be a talent agent. It could be someone on a marketing PR team. It could be a brand looking to collab. You never know. So do not discount those 200 views. Don't think that you're in 200 views jail because we're thinking small when we should be thinking bigger. The second takeaway underneath that, content builds trust before the transaction. By the time someone considers working with you or buying from you, they already know, like, and trust you because of what you shared. Because content creation is not just about promoting what's on TikTok Shop or whatever affiliate link that you have. There's nothing wrong with that. It's also about building real connections with your audience. And by the time that you may be promoting or selling something, people just like you for who you are and may buy into it authentically because you recommended it. Takeaway number 3, strategy beats randomness. Posting without direction may get attention, but intentional content grows authority and leads real results. Remember how I mentioned how my content focuses on those different areas? I don't just hop on trends because they're popular or whatever TikTok wants to feed me what everyone is talking about. I ignore those. I also ignore trending sounds because a lot of times, sometimes those trending sounds do not match my content. I'm not going to post something with a bunch of cursing for a restaurant I went to and I like the food during brunch. It does not make sense. Making sure that your content has a strategy to it, making sure that there's consistency is very important. There are people like Alicia. She is a content creator, a former hairstylist. She still laid them edges, but a former hairstyler who's now a full-time content creator. She has her morning live chats when she talks about coffee, when she has coffee when she talks to her audience. It is not a stick, it's who she is. She loves coffee, so she incorporates coffee into her content. Then you have people like Brittany. Brittany is a mom. She's a mom and wife of two. She's a cheer mom. She shares behind the scenes of being a mother, but she also shares the challenges and sometimes the days that are not easy being a mom. She shares her day-to-day life of being a cheer mom and going to competitions with her kids and being a wife and everything else. You know, there's my homegirl, my silk press slayer, Jazz. Jazz been doing my hair for checks notes 2 years now. Jazz always shows tutorial knowledge about caring for your hair, things about stereotypes associated with black hair, about hair, how black hair cannot grow, which it can. It can, but she shares institutional knowledge she has because she is a master barber and a licensed cosmetologist and business owner. There are people out there who are doing the work. My good sis Bianca, who was on a podcast last week, Bianca, besides being an educated makeup baddie, Bianca is a beauty content creator. She has worked with countless brands doing recommendations and reviews and things like that. She has worked behind the scenes at photo shoots and fashion week and all that other good stuff. She is a professional makeup artist with 20 years of experience, and her content reflects that. These are people who are standing in who they are because it's authentic and it works. And while every single video they have does not go viral, there's a reason why brands keep paying attention. There's a reason why their audience is tapped in, and the reason why their content continues to grow, because people are clocking in for them, not for a product. They are clocking in for their content. Lesson number 2, or tip number 2, I can't keep up at this point. We're just talking right now. We're just talking. Followers don't equal impact. I'm going to say it again. Followers don't equal impact, okay? And I know y'all like, but I want 20,000 followers. I want 50,000 followers. Da, 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 da. You can have that, boo-boo. You can have that. But if you have 50,000 followers and no engagement, what does that mean? What does it mean? Because I know some of y'all buy followers. I know that. And they're still going to clean up those bots at the end of the day, because after a while, the algorithm figures out you don't have no real followers, so they take those followers away. But we're not going to go there. So let's get into that first takeaway. Engagement quality versus audience size. A smaller, attentive audience who interacts with your content matters far more than a huge passive following at 50K versus 500. Which one do you want? The 50K who's not always engaged, or the 500 who tapped in? I would take the 500. I would take the 500. For that second takeaway, conversions tell the real story. Them numbers do not lie. Because every time someone's like, I have 100,000 followers on this platform. Well, that's great. Can I see your metrics? Let me see those metrics and see what's really going on. And that's a lot of times when I find out what's going on. Because the metrics tell me everything I need to know. And those metrics are things like sales, their signups, DMs. Those are the proof your content is actually moving the needle. Again, don't just focus on the number, the vanity metric. Focus on the actual impact metric, which is those things like DMs, comments, shares, saves, etc. For that third takeaway, depth creates sustainability. Long-term influence comes from meaningful relationships, not chasing fleeting impressions. Again, stop hopping on these trends if that's not what your content is about. Stop hopping on these trends if that's not what your content is about. Because it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. And I know everyone wants to go viral. Like, I want to go viral. That's going to be cool. Okay, what's the plan after you go viral? What's the plan? Because if you didn't have a solid content strategy of what you were doing already in which you went viral, once you go viral, what's the plan? Do you have anything else to offer your audience, or just that one viral video? Because a lot of people try to keep pushing that viral popularity. I can't say the word, darn braces. I just got them tightened. A lot of people keep trying to push that popularity of that one video and cannot recreate it. So if you come in already being who you are and you just happen to go viral, Then my suggestion is introducing yourself to your audience and telling them what your content is about. I did that after my my VP Kamala Harris video went viral on social media, on TikTok specifically. I took the time to introduce myself and my content and invited those who follow me to stick around. A lot of people did stick around. Some people fell off, and that's okay. I was able to continue to engage with my audience because I stick to what the formula is, and it has shown to work. So let's get into that next takeaway lesson number. You know where we are at this point. A strong community beats an inflated audience. For the first takeaway, build community through conversation, not broadcasting. By inviting dialogue, replying to messages, and making your audience feel seen, a community grows into a two-way interaction. Like I mentioned before, things like comments. Comments are the audience actually taking the time to type out something or essentially digitally talk to you, right? If you see a comment and it's positive and it's someone saying something great about your content or they have feedback or whatever, respond. Even if it's just like a smiley emoji or just type a little heart to say that you like the comment. But take the time to respond and acknowledge it. People appreciate when the creator, who they may never meet in real life but had a chance to engage with through this digital platform, actually takes the time to talk back to them, because that then turns that person potentially into a follower. When they see that you're a real one and not just someone who just posts and dips and never engages, when they see that, they're like, I actually like them. Let me keep following to see what other content they have, or dig into their page to see other things that I may like that they have posted. Takeaway number 2, loyalty compounds over time. People who stick with you, I'm staying beside them. People who stick with you become advocates, amplifying your message and strengthening your foundation. And I've had people I follow, since day one, who also follow me since day one. I have friends who are OG bloggers who are now turned content creators who I have genuine relationships with. I may not see them off of my timeline as much as I want to in real life, but I still support them. I still advocate for them. I still follow their content and engage because I have an actual relationship that has built over time and has become really authentic. Takeaway number 3, nurture your core. Focus on serving your most engaged followers. Growth often comes from strengthening your existing audience. That is very similar to the whole thing about sticking beside you, but making sure that, when you talk to your followers, look at their content, right? If you see someone is engaging with you multiple times on the platform and they follow you, girl, follow back. Just go ahead, tap the button, because you never know, that could make someone's day by you following them back, because you're their favorite creator and now they're like, oh my god, my favorite creator follows me. We're digital friends in real life. That's kind of like a conflicting statement, but you understand what I'm saying. But making sure that you're building that relationship and fostering that too helps them to further tap into who you are and then invest in the things that you may have coming down the pipeline. Number 4 for that next lesson / tip, consistency builds trust. Again, we got to show up on these platforms consistently. Consistency builds trust. In that first takeaway, it signals reliability. This podcast is produced every single week. Every single week. And when I am not producing a show that is fresh and brand new, you get Coffee to Go episodes. Those Coffee to Go episodes are repurposed content from prior podcast episodes for you to re-listen to with a fun message while I'm on hiatus. But I am consistent every single week, and I learned my lesson 2-ish years ago when I realized, and actually this was a message from the good Lord, when the good Lord told me, I need you to be consistent. And when he gathered me together, I said, I hear you. I hear you. And the moment I started listening and being consistent, not just on my podcast, but the way I showed up on social media, I saw a huge shift in the way I was received by these digital audiences. So by showing up regularly, that signals to your audience that you're dependable and serious. People know me as a 4-time award-winning marketer because guess what? I am. By being consistent on these platforms, you also show your audience that you're invested in what you're doing as well. And sometimes I know it's hard to show up. I know there are days you're like, I don't want to be on camera. I don't want to do this. It's too much work. I don't have the energy. You think I don't be performing sometimes on camera for y'all? Sometimes I'll be like, oh Lord, I gotta talk about this. But I also respect the fact that my audience is so engaged with me that they send me things and they're like, hey, we'll love your take on this when it comes to marketing. We'll love your opinion on this when it comes to XYZ. If my audience is asking that of me, I'm going to show up. I'm going to do my best to show up, but I'm also going to be honest with my audience when I am struggling. There are times when I struggle. There are times I've cried on this podcast before. Y'all know why. If you're an active listener, you know why I cried on this podcast. I am honest. And when people understand that, there's emotional intelligence also attached to that too. When your audience is understanding what you're going through, whether you're having a good day or a bad day, they're like, you know what, girl, I'm locked in with you too. Tell us what you need. Come back when you're ready. We're going to be here. And that's because when you're consistent, your audience has an actual community with you. And then in that final takeaway, systems protect creativity. By batching content, planning ahead, and setting boundaries, making consistent creation sustainable without burning out, you're playing the long game and not the short one. Takeaway number 2, authenticity is strategic. People connect with conviction. Sharing what you actually think builds trust and sets you apart. Like I mentioned before, my podcast also focuses on marketing. So when I'm creating my content where I do my marketing magics, where you see me go like this on a green screen, it is my way of building thought leadership. And by being authentic and tying that into thought leadership with marketing, I am able to then reach a broader audience because content creation is not the end game for me. This is essentially a platform to get me to the next level. Same thing with this podcast. Takeaway number 3, sustainability and going viral are two different things. Focusing on creating content you can maintain long term rather than chasing one-off viral hits is something that I have said time and time again and repeated it multiple times in this episode. Have a sustainable practice when it comes to your content. Don't just go off what's viral. Don't just go off what everyone else is saying, because guess what's going to happen when you go off what everyone else is talking about? Your content is going to get lost in the pool of everyone else. There's nothing that sets you apart. You may be funny, you may be different. Yeah, that's great. But what do you have beyond that? If you just keep being a person who is jumping on every single trend, it's like, okay, so you're the trend person. What's next? Unless you have a differentiator where you bring in your own personal insight that's not just about staring at mess, but it's actually about, being someone that we want to listen to, then that's what makes you different. But if you're just going to be someone who I could just easily swipe and hear the same thing on the next video, I don't want it. And a lot of people don't want it either. The last thing I want to add, just a little bonus for some razzle dazzle. Use the permission not to be everywhere. And I know people are like, in order to be effective, you got to be on every platform. No, you don't. No, you don't. Being honest, I am the kind of person where I was like, okay, when I was early in the game, I had to be on every single platform. Now I mainly focus on building my platform strategically and smartly. There are a bajillion social media platforms out there, but the main ones you have Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X. His mom named Clay. I'm gonna call him Clay. You also have Threads now, which is a container, Snapchat, Reddit, and Substack. I count Substack, as well as YouTube. I'm not on every single platform. I had a Substack before. If you noticed that, I had a newsletter. I tested it out. I felt I was stretching myself too thin, and I didn't need to have every single thing to talk about, the podcast. I just wanted to be more strategically focused. But I get back to my point. You don't have to be on every platform to be effective. Build your audiences strategically about what you want to talk about and who you want to engage with. You also don't have to post every single day on the platform. Now, I know Kev on stage likes to post 3-4 times a day. That works for Kev. That does not work for me because I will get burned out very quickly. And even if I post on TikTok 1 to 2 times a week separate from the podcast promotion, that is enough for me. That's the way that I like to show up. You show up in a way that's best for you, but don't feel the need to be that person who is on every platform every single day. Your light is always active green for people to see that you are online. Because after a while, it gets hard to keep up with that level of production. Mind you, content creation takes time. I don't care if that video is 5 seconds or 5 minutes. You still have to edit it. You still have to post it. You still have to write copy, all this other stuff. That takes a lot of energy to do. Please give yourself grace. If you want to start with just one platform and see how it grows and see how your audience responds, and then tool, and refine from there and maybe add another platform, that is perfectly fine. But do it at the pace that makes sense for you, your content creation journey, and what your audience is actually looking for. Okay, I hope you enjoyed today's chat. Oh, I forgot my Coffee with Yvonne mug. My bad. I hope you enjoyed today's chat. Don't forget to follow Coffee with Yvonne on Threads and Instagram at Coffee with Yvonne. You can also find me on TikTok, aka the Clock app, and Instagram at Yvonne_creative marketer, where you can see me cut up and who I am in real life. No filter. If you want to learn more about me and my business that I own, that I work very hard to keep, go ahead and go to pinkdollhousemarketing.com. You can also find me at pinkdollhousemarketing on Instagram. You can slide into my DMs. That's cool. And creatives, I will say this every single week until you get it. Don't forget to keep showing up, keep creating, and that your voice matters. I cannot wait to chat with you soon on another episode of Coffee with Yvonne. And don't forget, we're going on hiatus pretty soon. But again, you'll get Coffee to Go episodes. You'll be fine. Okay, bye! Coffee with Yvonne is produced and edited by Yvonne Pearson. Coffee with Yvonne is created by Pink Dollhouse Marketing. You can catch the latest episodes by subscribing to Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.